On the workbench today I have a Mitsubishi HSU760. This is a Super VHS VCR and it is totally dead. Power button does nothing. It is totally dead. The clock display and everything is out. So we're going to pull this one apart and see if we can find a problem with this one today. This one's actually brought into me. A buddy of mine brought this down to me. Said he hadn't used it for a while. When he plugged it in, it didn't work. So it might be something simple, it might not. Let's get the top off it and see what's going on. To pull the top off the machine and look at it, I found a copy of Frosty the Snowman stuck inside here. Now, my buddy's kids have all grown up, so I wonder how long it's been since this thing's been powered up. I guess this thing's been, it's probably been many years since this was powered up. First thing we're going to do on this is we're going to check to see if the fuse is blown. If we look down to the top, sure looks like that fuse is blown to me. I'll let you be the judge. Does that fuse look like it's blown? Yes, it certainly does. And it looks like it's blown pretty good too. It's all black. This is not the AC fuse. The AC fuse is over here. This is going to be one of the DC fuses. So let's replace it and watch the new one blow. So we'll snap in a new 2.5 amp fuse and apply power and see whether it goes kaboom. I see the fuse is stressing there. Didn't blow. I shut the power off, but you saw the little wire inside there moving. Something's drawing a lot of current on this thing, and it probably will pop that fuse again pretty quick. So, to hell with it. Let's just jumper that fuse and see if this thing will power up. Oh, I can hear that. That's why it's blowing a fuse. I'm going to shut off this heater in here so you guys can hear what's going on. Use your ears. This will give us a clue as to why that fuse blew. And that's why I jumpered it, just because I didn't want to blow another fuse. But take a listen. When I put on the power, okay, we have maybe a belt that's worn out or broken, and you can hear it dragging the motor, which of course is going to draw way too much current and blow that DC fuse. So the first thing first, we got to get this tape out of here. It even could be just the tape is jammed, and we need to take this out manually so that I can see why this thing is drawing so much power. So the first thing we'll do is we'll just simply remove the front cover. So we're just going to release the catches here. And pull off the shuttle dial first. And we have to release a couple more catches on the bottom. The front cover will come off. I want to disassemble this mechanism completely to find out why it's binding and why it's blowing the fuse. But that'll be the reason why the fuse blew, is because something in the mechanism is jamming and it's drawing too much current. So first things first, I want to move parts by hand to see if they turn freely. So the drum is not the problem. The drum turns freely. I'm going to rotate the capstan shaft by hand. I've pulled a bit of tape out here just so I can see it. When I turn the capstan shaft, if the belt is good and there's no problem in the clutching here, then it should wind that tape back in. So if I turn the capstan shaft by hand, you can see that it actually takes the tape back in. So we know that the problem is not with the capstan motor seizing up. We know that the problem is not with the belt and its associated gearing underneath the tape. So I want to eject the tape manually, and that means I have to turn the loading motor by hand to retract the tape and eject it. To access the loading motor, we have to remove the bottom plate. So we're going to remove the arrow mark screws there, 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 and there. There's 5 arrow mark screws that have to come out, and then we have to press the 2 little arrow mark tabs. One is there and one is there, and while pressing those tabs, just slide the cover back. Now it'll lift off, exposing the bottom of the chassis. And here's our loading motor right here. And our loading motor doesn't appear to be jammed or anything, but the belt seems like it's pretty flimsy. So I think the problem is going to be that the belt is worn out on this. We can check that. I'm just going to power the unit back up and see if this turns. So power on. Oh, you see? That's what the problem is the belt is worn out and it's not able to supply any torque. And it just drags it down and causes the fuse to blow. We'll just try and eject the tape here. I guess it's going to want to load first. Yeah, the belt is worn out, so I'm going to take the tape out by hand, and then we'll take the chassis apart and see if we can get at that belt and show you how to change it, because you got to lift the deck out. You got to take the actual chassis out from the circuit board to get at it to replace it. So the direction you need to turn the gear, the loading gears, you have to turn the gear this direction, so I'm turning it clockwise looking from the front, and that will retract the tape back in. I've already done that. I've made sure that the tape's not going to jam. As I continue to turn this, it'll operate the loading mechanism and remove the tape. And as you can see, as I continue to turn it, it's operating the loading mechanism, and the tape is slowly ejecting. Now the reason I have to take the tape out is because there's going to be screws that need to come out from below the chassis here to be able to remove it. So I'll just take the mechanism back to its fully unloaded position, right there. And then we'll proceed to take the mechanism apart. First things first, we have to remove a couple screws that go in through the circuit board to hold the mechanism in place from the bottom. So there's a couple of screws here. They are silver in color. We have 3 screws on the bottom here, and I believe that one's also got to come out up the top here at the back. So we take those screws out, and then we can turn the machine over and start unscrewing it from the top. There's going to be a screw down through here. There's going to be another screw down through this access hole here. And there will be 3 screws at the back. 1 on each side and 1 in the middle right behind the head amp shield. We remove these screws, and that one's a large one. And the deck assembly should just lift straight out. There's going to be a couple of connectors at the back which are going to have to be unplugged. So you lift the deck up and just place your hand on the board to hold the board down so it won't lift, and just give it a little bit of a pull and the unit will come out. And then there's just 1 plug at the front here, that's for the loading motor, and this 1 plug at the back here. Take that off. Now we can take the deck out and work on the deck. And here's the belt that we're going to have to replace. So this unit has 2 belts in it. I'm just going to move the chassis away so I can work on the deck itself, or move the circuit board away out of the way. So now we can work on the chassis. So these screws here hold the sub-mechanical assembly in place. There's 3 of them. We remove these 3 screws. And we can lift out the mechanical assembly. Now when we do that, we're going to lose our timing slightly on our loading gear, so we'll have to put that back in place. We also need to release a catch over on this side, and the whole assembly should just lift right out. First thing I noticed that this belt here also needs to be replaced. This capstan belt is worn out. Okay, to lift out the loading motor assembly, there's a catch on either side. You just have to push the catch through like that. We can lift the loading motor assembly out. We'll make sure that we don't upset our timing. There are timing marks on here. You'll see the gears here. We want to make sure that our timing marks remain intact. We're going to have to retime, or basically we're going to have to reset the loading motor when we put the system back in. We'll just have to apply some pressure to the loading gear here just to reset the spring to get it to the fully unloaded position. But now we can go about and change the belt. Now if we look down at this loading motor here, you can see why the fuse blew. As it was trying to turn, as the motor was turning and it was trying to load or unload the tape, the belt, because it had been sitting for a period of time, actually stuck to the pulley, and then of course as the motor turned, the belt wound around and bunched up like that and locked the motor, stalled out the motor, and that's what blew the fuse. So I got to get a new belt for this thing. I get a new belt for the main drive as well, because these ones are falling apart. We'll get the belt off of here. To get it off of this shaft here, we just simply pull the clip back a bit and we can slide the belt out like that. Okay, I've received the new belts. I couldn't get the exact size, as the places I went to didn't have them in stock, and belts are getting harder and harder to get. That's the problem that I found, is that because more and more people are not repairing their equipment, the parts stores are just not bringing in belts. They used to sell them by the hundreds, and again, in the last couple of years, because more and more things are not being repaired, the suppliers just aren't stocking the type of stock that they used to have. But I got one here. This will work. It's a little bit smaller than the original, which is good because we need the torque, as this is the main loading motor here. So there's my belt there, and that will turn no problem. So now we have to reinstall the loading motor, and I do have to preload the spring for the push the lever back in place here. Push the little metal rod back in. There we go. So now I just have to pull the white portion of the gear back to preload it. That way we've got our tension on the split loading gear here for the front loading mechanism. I can put the screws back in. And now we'll put the capstan drive belt on that drives the reels. Another common problem on these Mitsubishi machines, it hasn't happened on here, but quite often what will happen is this plastic pulley will crack, and this pulley will actually spin. You'll see the motor spinning inside, and the pulley won't turn because you'll develop a crack. If that happens, just put some epoxy on and glue it back down to the bottom of the rotor. Got plenty of torque, because those other ones just is not going to work. So this one here will drive the pulley no problem. Put the chassis back in now. We have to line up these connectors with the connectors on the board here. So the chassis goes in just like this. We just line up the connectors and push them in place, and then drop the chassis down. The tape end sensor will come up through the hole in the bottom here, and now we can go about and start replacing the screws. So we install our new fuse. And now we can power the unit up. We have power, as you can see. So load the tape. Tape will go in. One thing I want to check on this is I want to make sure that the post that the pinch roller rides up and down on is my drum motor didn't come on. Did you notice that? That the pinch post here is not dried out, the lubricant, but I just noticed that my drum motor did not come on, so we have to investigate that. As you can see, what happened back here is when I seated the mechanism in, this back connector didn't seat properly, so we have to make sure that it snaps all the way in. That's the power. The other one seated okay, but this one on this one side here didn't seat properly when I snapped the chassis in, and that would be the power connector for the motor. So just make sure that those connectors seat properly with their receptacles, and you shouldn't have a problem. Okay, once again we'll try loading the same tape. This time the drum motor should spin, which it does. Tape threads. Let's see if it plays. Press the play button. Tape is turning. We can scan ahead a bit here, and as you can see, we have a picture. Turn up the sound. Just gonna scan it forward again here. There we go.
It started with the snow. You see, it is a very special kind of snow.
I would
A snow that makes the happy.
say that this machine is fixed. Let's eject the tape. I think that's the eject button. Maybe not. Maybe it's this one. That's the eject button. This machine is fixed. So the one last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to just make sure that the lubricant is not drying out on the pinch arm shaft. We're just going to remove the cover here for the tower gear, and we can lift off the pinch arm assembly careful not to pull the tower gear up, because we don't want to change the alignment. I just want to clean the old grease off of here and put some of the yellow moly coat grease on in place of it, because the black grease that was put on at the factory has a tendency to dry out. So we'll just put some moly coat grease into here, and then we can reinstall, put some on the shaft as well. We'll reinstall the pinch arm. This will just keep this from getting seized up. That was quite a common problem with Mitsubishi and Sony, was that the pinch arm assembly pinch roller assembly would freeze up and it would break. It would break the plastic piece here on the back of the pinch roller, and then you'd have to change the whole pinch roller assembly. So that's done. Now I can put the front of the machine on and we can start reassembling. So to put the front cover on, we open up the tape door, the lid, because it has to clear over top of the lever that opens it, and just snap on. Then we can place the shuttle and jog dials back on. Turn the machine over. Put our screws back in that hold the board in place. There's a couple of screws that had to come out to remove the circuit board. This screw is an important one because it's a grounding screw for the head amp. If you don't put that on, you could end up with little streaks of flickering light, like a white dots and white streaks running through the picture. That's a ground screw. And also, there's another one that goes when you put the bottom cover on here. There's another one that goes through here to ground the set. So these tabs here lock in underneath the plastic, and then just pull it forward and lock into place. A couple more screws in the bottom again. Tighten that one up, as that one is one of the ones that grounds the base plate to the ground screw. Replace the arrow mark screws. We're going to give this machine a cleaning and then send it on its way. So to clean the heads, we're just going to use a piece of paper and some 99% isopropyl alcohol. Wet a piece of paper, just hold it up against the head drum and turn. And a little bit of dirt on there, and then we'll do the same thing for the audio control erase heads. This time we'll just use a Q-tip. Clean the heads, the tape guides. Let it dry, and then we can give the machine one final test. Final test. There it is. It's done. Thanks for watching. We'll catch you in the next video. Again, this Mitsubishi, these are one of the better machines. The Mitsubishis that are a little bit older than this were, I think, a little bit better. These ones still not bad. They had gone away from the solid aluminum die-cast chassis on this one. It's a stamped steel with plastic runners. I think the generation prior to this one was a little bit better because everything was solid aluminum chassis, but this particular machine is really nothing to sneeze at. One of the better VHS VCRs made over the years, and one that was certainly worth putting a couple belts in a fuse in, and the owner of this one will be very happy to get it back. We'll see you in the next one.